Not hearing where. Oh, now I'm hearing.
Fill an open spot. Craig,
Yeah.
someone was the mayor.
Right, so you say we got Spencer, Henry, William, no, oh, and then Shelby.
Okay.
Everybody online, address okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the April 11th KIPTA Regional Planning Council meeting to order. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Those here in the room, good to see everybody in person. Those of you who are still online, it's good to see you still online. Our first order of business will be to do the roll call. So, Ms. Rachel Miller, let's go do the roll call for us.
Judge Jerry Summers. Mr. Charlie Spalding. Mr. Keith Griffey. Is it a delay?
Is it coming from the television?
No, it's coming from that.
Maybe somebody needs to be on mute. Oh, it is delayed. Yeah.
Do something about it.
Okay, Judge Scott Bates.
Right.
Mr. Jason Stanley. Ms. Emily Lou.
Here.
She's here. Mr. Tony Parrott. Mr. Mike King.
Here.
Judge David Vogel. Mr. Brian Fogel. Judge Dan Eisen. Mr. Ryan Lipke.
Present.
Mr. Lawrence Blackaby. Judge Scott Travis. Ms. Julie Sweezy. Judge John Ogburn. Ms. Diana Arnold. Present. Mayor Joe Robinson. Is that? Yeah. I see.
I was asked to take the mayor's place. I
Okay,
represent.
okay, all right. Got it, that's it. We have a quorum.
All right, well, thank you. We have a quorum and we'll move on with our next item of business then, and that's going to be the minutes from the January 10th meeting. You should have received that in your email for the invite to the meeting and had a chance to look at those. Is there any corrections or deletions? And if not, we'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. We have a motion from Judge Bates. Can see it in the line. I'll second the motion. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Like sign? Hearing none, the motion passes. The minutes are approved. Okay. Next item of business is the KIPTA updates. KIPTA staff. Ryan, do you have anything?
We do not have anything major. We're still, working through a second round of funding on cleaner water program here. I'm also, newly working on a brick, building resilient infrastructure and communities project, which is a grant funding source that's coming down through the state. And the state's Energy and Environment Cabinet is working with us to identify some areas within energy infrastructure to use some of this funding for. So over the course of the next year and a half, I'm going to be working with the utilities in our area development district and some other stakeholders who are interested in utilizing some of this funding to try and make our energy infrastructure more resilient. It's kind of open-ended on how the funding can be used right now. That's part of the reason that we're going to be working with the stakeholder group to kind of try and talk to some folks and identify some weaknesses that might exist in our energy infrastructure in this region. So that's kind of the, I guess, new big thing that I'm working on since our last meeting. Does anybody else? Give a quick update on anything?
All right.
Yeah.
Randall, you have anything from transportation side?
Right now, we're going through the strategic highway infrastructure for tomorrow with the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So we're looking at scoring highway projects. I've met with Judge Bates in Henry County and Shelby, Trimble and Henry County. So we're getting ready to go through that for the next highway plan. So we've been talking about that.
Okay. For Haley, do you have?
Not have any of those
All
today.
right, thank you. Alicia?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the KIPTA updates. Appreciate that. Next item will be the county quarterly updates and Judge Bates and Henry County. We'll start with you.
Yes, sir. We are very busy in our county. A lot of new things happening, and Randall and all his crew did come. Jared, they've all been to my office, and we did go over a lot of things with the planning of the roads, and we're still working on a sewer project in Pendleton, trying to get the funding all together for that. So we're really seeing a lot of positive things happening, and I feel good about what's going on in Henry County.
All right, thank you. Move on to Spencer County, Ms. Swayze. Julie, can you hear us? All right, we'll get back to Julie. Let's go on to Emily Lou and Mike King with Louisville Metro.
Okay. There's just a lot going on here in Louisville. I'll give you a little update about last year. So last year, we have reached a decade high of application of development. So since 2013, our application basically doubled, and last year really reached the highest one among the 10 years since we have the data. And our revenue have tripled during that time as well. Just residential application alone, we have 6,000 housing units approved through the Planning Commission, Planning Design Services. 5,000 of those are being multifamily. So single family is have a smaller portion, about 1,000. Also have a lot of commercial and industrial use that's being approved. And also on the side of what's going on right now, we're continuing to do our zoning reform. Right now we're focused on mixed-modal housing. We have done a lot of education about what is mixed-modal housing. Those are, I just meant single family apartment, but there's missing in between. Hardly anything in between are being proposed, being built in Louisville. That's not just our problem, it's a national problem issue. So that's why I call mixed-modal housing. Those are the duplexes, triplexes, fourplex, and also small scale courtyard, like very small buildings clustered together. So we're working on that. And hopefully we'll have a proposal to Metro Council sometime this year to ask for approval. The other thing you probably heard about that we're working on is short-term rental. We're going to probably tighten up a little bit more short-term rental regulations. There are a lot of concern about the short-term rental operations in Louisville. And so that's something we're looking at. There are a few other things we're looking at, but that's a local level. At the national level, there's a big initiative about housing and zoning related. So the American Planning Association and the National League of Cities team up together this year. It's trying to create a project called Housing Supply Accelerator. And that project really got a lot of attention. Right now, HUD, National Realtor Association, National Building Association, National Mortgage Association, quite a few of that organization related housing all are committed to this project. So you're probably going to hear about this a little bit more. We just have a kick-off meeting about a couple of weeks ago. So Louisville, I'm a part of that committee, steering committee at this national level, but they are going to talk about construction, mortgage interest, interest rate, housing related, especially zoning related, probably some discussion during the next 6 months. So we should have some recommendation before the end of the year. Just give a little heads up on that. If you want to know a little bit more information, I'll be happy to share that. So we just got that project started. It's probably going to be making a lot of the national news in the next few months. And I'm pretty sure Mike have a few questions. We'll work together on a few other projects.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. We've got a lot going on for sure. I'll just kind of quickly touch on some of the BIL funding and some of the transportation related projects that we have. We were very fortunate to have received 4 now BIL grants. We got the RAISE grants for planning the next phase of planning to take our Broadway All the Way plan all the way through to construction documents. We also received a RAISE grant for design build for the Reimagine 9th Street plan, which will redo the 9th Street corridor from Broadway up to Main Street. We received a Safe Streets for All grant, which is going to provide some right sizing and traffic calming on, I believe, 11 different corridors throughout the community. We also received a SMART grant, which is going to help us with some digital and integrated technology for notification for flooding of underpasses. And then just a couple of weeks ago, in collaboration with KIPTA, we submitted an application to start analysis to look at passenger rail connecting us up to Indianapolis, and worked in conjunction with Indianapolis, who is doing an application for Indy to Chicago. So hopefully we'll hear something about that in the coming months, which would be very exciting. And I'll kind of leave it at that.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, let's move on. Mr. Vogel with Oldham County.
You're muted there.
Mr. Vogel, you're muted. You unmute your screen.
How's that?
There you go.
You're good? Yeah, thank you.
Sorry about that. Yes, exit 18, we have a Kroger Marketplace under construction, which is the Buckner exit. That's driving a lot of more interest in that particular exit, most of it highway related with the McDonald's, a gas station, hotels. In terms of transportation projects, exit 20, an additional exit for the LaGrange area is under construction. That has also driven an interest, in the Planning Commission approved an amendment to the Oldham Reserves Planned Unit Development standards, to where now we have a high density residential district that would allow up to 24 dwelling units per acre, which is our highest density. Presently, all other of our high density zoning would be 16 units per acre. And then we've also undertaken, and we now have it in front of the legislative bodies, 4 amendments to the zoning ordinance of existing regulations that address event centers, agritourism buildings, golf driving ranges and our school capacity standards. And we've also created a new section in the zoning ordinance to address solar energy systems, because we're seeing a lot of interest out in the county of installing those either on homes or also addressing if someone wanted to put in just a large one in a field. That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vogel. Any questions? All right, hearing none, let's go back to Ms. Sweeney. Julie, can you hear us? And I'm not sure what's going on with Julie, but Julie, if you get your side of it fixed, please jump in at any time.
Can you hear me?
Here now.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you all, but the whole time it keeps telling me to unmute, but it wouldn't let me do it.
Well, you're unmuted now, so thank you.
Okay, I don't have a lot to report since last meeting. I guess one of our biggest things we've got going on at the moment is we are creating a townhouse residential district just strictly for townhouses. That's not anything that had been proposed to us before. Now we've got some interest. So that's what we're in the process of doing, you know, through our office is creating a new residential townhouse district and some guidelines to go along with that. So we've borrowed from everybody. I'll be honest, no need in inventing the wheel. So we're trying to take some of the guidelines you guys have actually and make them work for our community. So like I said, that's about all I've got to report, to be honest.
Okay, well, thank you, Julie. Good to hear you on here, and glad we got that issue resolved and we could let you have a chance to speak. So,
All right, thanks.
all right, final county, I think that's present unless I'm missing somebody, is Shelby, and that's the county I represent. And I think I'm the only one from Shelby County here, so I'll go ahead and. Oh, we can turn?
You have Trimble.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go ahead, Ryan, alphabetically on
All
that.
right, Trimble County, let's go to Trimble.
We were able to complete the revision of our comprehensive plan. That was such a delight that we're anxious to start another revision, but and look forward to adding the census data for the demographic information. We submitted that for review, and it was unanimously approved by the fiscal court, which was a big relief to commissioners. We've had some new magistrates elected who frankly weren't quite certain where things stood with planning and zoning. So there's support. We have a new commissioner and people are seeking the training required for compliance with that. So that's what's going on that I know of in Trimble. And Judge Ogburn regrets not getting to be here, but he could not. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
For some reason I was thinking you were part of Henry, so
Well,
you're close enough,
we're
right?
great
Oh.
neighbors.
So thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and do Shelby County. Tonight, the city of Simpsonville will have their second community meeting for they're preparing their own comprehensive plan. They're gonna have that from 5 to 6:30 at City Hall. Taylor Seeker Williams is preparing the plan as a consultant for Simpsonville. Hoping after tonight's meeting, they'll finalize the plan to be sent to the planning commission for the public hearing and then be sent back to the city. The second part of that is they're gonna rewrite not all of the zoning regulations for Simpsonville, but they're definitely gonna go through the residential and all the zoning districts and update those for the city. Which is definitely needed and keeps me from having to do that. So it's nice that the city's paying for that and can get that done. Yeah, if you've been through Shelby County, a lot going on. Exit 32, which is the first Shelbyville exit coming out of Jefferson County. If you haven't seen, there's one warehouse, 500,000 square feet that's going up. The second one will be 1 million square feet, and that's where the recently announced intervenue plant to assemble basically big battery cells will be take place. And that location, I think they're gonna be doing a revision, they had about another 60,000 square feet to that facility for their offices. And, they're gonna divide off and create about a 3-acre tract just for their own substation. Cause they'll need their own power just for that building. And, I think they're in the neighborhood of over 2,000 employees. They're gonna put over 200 million into the facility. And then what we've heard is they're gonna put over $1 billion worth of robotics inside that building to operate that facility. So over time, that'll all be done. IJW, the city of Shelbyville they announced a new distillery, IJW, which has been going on for a number of months out there on Zering Mill Road at I-64. They're gonna invest over 200 million in that project as well, and they're buying up additional land around that facility as we speak. And then, we've got some other distilleries that are looking or under construction in Shelby County that taking place. Met with the mayor this morning. We're probably gonna, he's looking into it, because of some of the bills that have been passed in Frankfurt. You're probably gonna see it's gonna be harder to build a distillery in Shelby County in the future. There's really no reason to have just barrel warehousing in the counties anymore if they're not gonna have the barrel tax. So, they're not gonna have employees sitting there watching the barrels, and there's no money in it for the county. So you'll probably start seeing that being scaled back. You have to have a distillery or just none at all out in rural areas. And if they want to build a distillery in the industrial zones, that'd be fine. And then you all probably with the cities and then the annexation bill, that was a big stir here the last few months. With the moratorium on annexations and stuff between the cities, and that was a big deal. So now I've got one request already on my desk from the city of Shelbyville to annex a property on the northeast side of the city. And then the city of Simpsonville is also working with some property owners that also voluntarily asking to be annexed into the cities. Because they're concerned about that being an issue down the road in the future, that they wanted to have sewer or have the city services, that they would be limited. And so, I think I'm gonna see a couple more of those come through. And the reason why we're seeing it is we don't have to approve the annexation or anything from the planning side of it, but if you annex the land, then it follows the zoning regulations of the jurisdiction it was, unless that jurisdiction initiates or the property owner afterwards initiates a rezoning. And so since our cities kind of have different regulations in the county and some of the zoning districts, that becomes a problem. And so they'd have to follow the county until they rezone. And so the cities, I think, are offering up that they will do that as part of the annexation process. And to get a recommendation and rezone the property prior as they annex them. Which is also a benefit to that property owner, because then they don't have to go through that process and pay the fees and for applications and things of that nature, prepare plans, have traffic studies done and all that, just to get annexed. So that kind of helps them. So we're gonna see that be probably a huge issue in Shelby County in the next 6 months to 12 months. Because of that legislation. So other than that, that's all I have to report. So if there's anything else from other counties, please jump in. If not, we'll move on.
Right, I know John Parks is on there.
Is John on here now?
Yeah.
John, do you have anything from Shelby County?
No, I just need you to get back to Shelby County because you're really, really busy right now. And I'd like going down that list and hearing all those things that you're talking about. I do want to, I don't know if you've done it, I apologize. I was late getting on the call, but recognize Henry County Judge Executive Scotty Bates. Today's his birthday, if you all didn't know that already. So I saw him in the room there. So happy birthday, Scotty.
Thank you.
No. Yeah, happy birthday. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Parks. That concludes our county quarterly updates. Keep the announcements.
I do not have any additional announcements. Please, do you have anything?
I do not.
Good. All right, no announcements. All right, we'll move on. Guest speaker.
Felicia, do you just want to kind of touch on a couple of the upcoming funding grant deadlines, Billings Water and Recreational?
There's a deadline of May 31st for the land and water and the recreational trails. So if any county or city is interested in that and hasn't already reached out to us, please do so. So we can get that started and submit it in time. CDBGs are opening up soon. So if there's any community development grants that you all are interested in, we can offer our services for that as well. And I think that's currently it.
There's Homeland Security, which is due at the beginning of May.
Okay, Homeland Security.
All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, if not, we're gonna go to our guest speaker, SHPO, Nicole Conkle.
That's right.
All right, Nicole Conkle, she's Site Protection Program Administrator. And so, Nicole, thank you for being here and having your staff with you and that, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you guys
All yours.
very much for the invitation, first off, and we are very much a team. My colleagues here are Rashay Jennings and Stephanie Dooley. Stephanie lives in Louisville, and Rashay has some local government experience with preservation. Do you by any chance have a pointer and a slide? No, it's no big deal if you don't have a pointer.
Yeah, maybe over here. Let me check over here.
Would it be better if you guys about one up there? Is it okay to just?
You're fine there.
Yeah.
Going down.
If we can't find the pointer, I can just advance the slide for you. Does that work okay?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And it may be that some of the presentation that I have prepared is, you guys are not the target audience for it. How many folks in here actually compile information to submit for section 106 review? Okay, yes, we're good then. I did want to point out, you guys have a lot of great stuff going on. I actually sit on the City of Frankfort, not to be confused with the capital city of Frankfort's Architectural Review Board, and carrying other communities successfully working on their comprehensive plans, and all the development coming in is pretty exciting. So basically there are quite a few things that you guys mentioned that come through our office. The battery plants, we've already reviewed a couple of those throughout the state. Most CDBG things come through us. These ladies actually, Steph's an archaeologist and Rashay is a historic preservationist, and they prioritize, they do all sorts of things, but they prioritize our transportation review. So that's just a little bit about some of the things we are involved in. So the first slide just kind of introduces the Heritage Council, because we're so much more than section 106. The site protection team, we're not the popular folks most of the time, right? Because all the other branches in KHC, they deal with helping people who want to list their property or other things that they can provide support for, whereas we are the regulatory and review branch of the agency. So next slide is, these are two other sections. We have one lady who runs the Kentucky Main Street program for the entire state. She is a force. Her name is Kitty Dugu. All of the heritage commissions are, we are the umbrella for. So that's the African American Heritage Commission, the Native American Heritage Commission, the Martin Luther King Heritage Commission, the Military Heritage Commission, and I think I'm forgetting one. And that's all done by Tress Brown, one person. Our National Register program run by Marty Perry. We don't even have a certified local government coordinator in the moment. We'll be posting that job soon. We have a brand new survey coordinator, Matt Yeagle, who just left being our above ground reviewer. Administration, of course, I'm sure you all know Craig Potts. He is our State Historic Preservation Officer and Director. And he kind of does everything, literally every day. He touches it, is very engaged, and we're very fortunate to have a State Historic Preservation Officer like him that shows up, is engaged, and keeps his feet on the pavement. So the next slide, site development, preservation easements, and historic rehabilitation tax credits. Are you guys aware that like the cap on those for any historic districts, historic properties, the cap in Kentucky was just raised up to like $1 million or something. It's huge. We're probably one of the top 5, based on property values and population anyway, the highest tax credit program in the country. And we, along with Patty and Gabby, who are not with us today, are the site identification team. We do all the section 106 review, all the archaeologists. I'm an archaeologist, that's an archaeologist. All the archaeologists at the Heritage Council are in the site protection program. So next slide. That's us. See all these smiling faces? We really do love our job. We're still 2 people short being a full team, but we're getting there. And I just wanted you guys to see, because we don't get out much. This is the first time a local government has invited us, or an area development district, anybody outside of the state government in Frankfurt has invited us, so thank you. Next slide. There's a handout here. So this slide and the next slide are basically links to anything that can help you do things more quickly. We are working on an all digital, all electronic submission process. So this whole KHC section 106 dedicated email address is like a stepping stone to that, because soon we're going to have fingers crossed, we're going to have a link and you click on it and you just submit your own information. So the next slide as well it's more links in there provided on the handout. I can also email this.
Oh, I can send these out in a follow-up to the meeting to everybody as well.
Great, thank you. It's just nice to be able to just click on it, because our webpage is not that, we also don't have a public information officer and haven't for some time. So our webpage is about 4 years out of date. So this is, this just cuts through all that. All right, so I did a deep dive into this. There is a submission that is absolutely perfect that I pulled up. It was the first perfect submission that I actually found, and it's y'all's. It's a KIPTA submission. So everything that I'm going to talk about is based on that section 106 cover sheet, which is also, I brought some paper copies of that, but it's also available via those links. So I'm going to do a deep dive. I did not time this. You guys, if you have questions, if you have concerns while I'm going, if I'm saying something you think sounds crazy, I probably am. So just let me know and let's talk about it, because we want to help if we can. So there's some misconceptions, and that's what I focused on going through the information that we asked for. And the first one is, a lot of times we see, that's why I have lead federal agency in bold up there. We'll see something like the lead federal agency might be listed as CDBG or a certified local government or any kind of state level acronyms. Those are not federal agencies. Now, does anybody in here work for a federal agency directly? Okay, is this being recorded? What I've seen, I've been doing this 25 years. What I have seen is a tendency for, and I get it, we all do. Everybody's short-staffed and resources are strapped. But what they're doing more and more is they're depending on state and local agencies to do their job. And it's very difficult for state and local government to do the jobs of a lead federal agency when they aren't given the knowledge or the tools to do it. CDBG, usually that's going to be HUD. You know, sometimes it could be USDA, but we need to know. And we're crippled if we don't know. Because while section 106 is something, that's done throughout the country, it's done by humans. Every human has a little bit different interpretation, a little bit of different needs. And in addition to section 106, we have programmatic agreements. with folks that just totally streamline the process. So what the Federal Highway Administration submits to us may be done one way because we have a programmatic agreement with them that says we'll do this. Or we may have an internal policy, which we're just starting to create for our local governments and area development districts that say, hey, if you're gonna be replacing water line, we don't need to do this, just skip to the chase. But if we don't know who that federal agency is that you're getting the permit or the money from, we don't know if we have a programmatic agreement in place, and we have hundreds of them. So knowing that lead federal agency and having that information is hugely significant. It is so significant that you are the first group of people that will figure out that our new platform, when you click on the link, you can't get past. If you do not enter your lead federal agency, you will not be able to even submit to us. And I know that it kind of stinks. It kind of stinks for you guys, but if we don't have that hook, and if we don't know, like Land and Water Conservation Fund, we know that's MPS. Recreational Trails Program, that's Federal Highways, and we know this just because we've done so many of them, but y'all know we had a mass exodus a couple of years ago. So, and it happens, we have turnover, and it takes people time to just put all that in their hands. So lead federal agencies are really key for us.
On that note, we want to thank you so much and very appreciative for your help with the Cleaner Water Grants Program for that programmatic agreement, because that was a lot, saved us a lot of work on the front end. So thank you so much for helping us out with that.
That's a
There's so
fun,
many projects that we saw, so that really streamlined the process.
good, and we can keep making it better too. That's communicate. I know right now we keep saying, I'm gonna wait, like coming to visit with you guys. I keep saying, I'm gonna wait till we're fully staffed, and that has to stop. We're just gonna go. We can do this. Let's see. There's something we did wrong on the section 106 cover sheet, and it is horrendous, and we fixed it in the online platform if it ever launches. And that is if you look at the project sponsor, which is y'all, usually, or it technically would be CDBG or what's the other one, DLG. Anyway, we didn't put a place for the email address, and we're all electronic now. So we need an email address to communicate with the actual person who's doing the work, right? Because it's like, we maybe have 5 lead federal agencies out of an average of 45 that actually do their job. The rest of them do up to y'all. So and then when I say do their job, I mean under the umbrella of the National Historic Programmatic or National Historic Preservation Act. And that's what says lead federal agencies are responsible to do all these things. And I guess by delegating others, they are. It's just, they're doing more and more of that. So please put your email, even though we didn't think to ask for it or save space on the line. It's just, yeah. I think this is the same one we've been using since 2010. Just updated at the bottom with our all electronic submission information. Project information, that's always better in a standalone write-up, which I think that the submission that Ryan printed out does have that write-up. We do need something that we can start looking for a project title, and that's how most people identify their projects, is by, Bedford wastewater or some kind of shorthand that, again, wouldn't be lost with institutional knowledge, so that 5 years from now, when someone gets a call and says, hey, we can't find our letter from the Bedford wastewater project, and we know that you guys wrote it, could you pull it up for us? This is what we're gonna look for. We're gonna look for the lead federal agency. We're gonna look for the county, the information that is on this cover sheet. And it happens a lot, that we need to help folks pull some information from. Also helpful note, anything from 2020 to November of 2021 that people ask us to find for them, the chances are we don't have it. I'll be honest, that's probably a horrible thing. But what happened is we were all at home working, trying to keep things going. And then when folks came back and they left their jobs, we don't have what they did, a lot of it. So there's gonna be some building back up of information. That doesn't mean you can't call us and ask for it, 'cause we'll figure out something, some ways to deal with it. So the KHC and OSA data. I believe that our webpage still says that everyone is required to submit that. There's a couple ways to look at it. So basically, if you contact the KHC site data or site check email, that goes to a lady named Karen Stevens, and she can pull up every survey of above ground properties and every recorded above ground property that has been documented in the state of Kentucky to date. The same goes for the Office of State Archaeology at the University of Kentucky. So if you provide us that information, it's great because we can look at your project area. Then we can lay over. It may be that you, especially with water projects, I find this to be true of life. The survey's already been done. And that list can tell us, and if it's been done, you're not gonna, well, unless somebody did a really horrible job, which is very rare, you wouldn't have to survey it again. We'd only have to, we could just move straight forward to the sites.
And who has that information?
KHC, it's a different, section. She teleworks for the most part. She is in the, I think, site identification program. I left her off. I am so sorry. But it is, KHC. I should get her emails to you guys, but basically it's a KHC and one of them is site check. Anything at the local government level or regional, it would be site check. Now, if you're looking for massive data, that means you've hired a consultant. So you guys yourself should never have to ask for that. That's like the total, we're fixing to go in and survey it, which will probably happen if it hasn't already for the battery plant. That level of detail is not needed. But I can make sure you guys have her direct email for that. OSA, that's actually, we're a split state. So while we have archaeologists who can access data to do our reviews, the University of Kentucky is actually under state law. That's who holds the inventory of the archaeological data. And they give us reports as well. And they will say, hey, this has already been surveyed, if it has. They will also say to us, there are sites present. They will not tell us where those sites are. We can sometimes go into the data and tell, but it could use an update. And we don't have GIS, so that doesn't help either. But it will say, hey, if there's a site that's already been assessed as ineligible, guess what? You're done. You're done. So a lot of people think that, oh, if there's an archaeological site here, it's going to stop everything. No. Now, if it's an eligible archaeological site, that's a whole different ball of wax. But that's, again, rare. And so much of what you guys do oftentimes has been in the area that's already been surveyed. So the other biggest important thing on Section 6 is attachments. And they are really, really important. I think I have more slides and detail about that. I'm going to go ahead and move on, and then I'll circle back around to attachments later. So the perfect submission would have a cover letter, something really basic. You can even do it in email now. I mean, this is all new in the last couple of years. Give us a contact name, phone number. And a lot of people say, hey, we need clearance. We don't clear. That's like I don't know where that came from. The whole state of Kentucky uses that language. It's not something we can do is clear it, because we do have Fish and Wildlife. There are so many other types of resources. What we can do and what we're tasked to do under federal and state law is comment on any effects to historic properties that your project may have, or at least have the potential to cause. So that's what, sometimes folks are just turning in the results of a survey. That's one type of submission we get. Sometimes people are you know, sending in an inquiry about something. If you want something reviewed for section 106, we need some kind of language to say, hey, we need you to comment on our undertaking or our project. Because we do get quite a few inquiries, and if we don't have that request, we can't always know for sure what you need from us. Next slide, please. This is going back to the section 106 cover sheet. We've already covered all that. So the email address that we left off, please make sure to provide that for us so we know who knows the facts on the project. And it'll always be you or your consultant with stuff. I haven't seen a lot of stuff coming. I haven't seen a lot of lead federal agencies like Homeland Security, FEMA defers. It's strange, but next slide, please. The federal agency, there's people giving you the money or the permit. It's not always clear. What's your name?
Felicia.
Felicia, it sounds like Felicia knows. Like who and where the money and permitting is coming from. We also, it's weird because with FEMA Homeland Security, FEMA will shut us down. Like FEMA on active emergencies, we do prioritize everything right now. And that is also taking a lot of bandwidth because we do review every bit of the emergency response. But and they are very adamant, do not comment unless you get a request from your lead federal agency to comment, and they're correct. So I'm trying to do as they wish, and I'm, sending out Homeland Security, FEMA funded things, and all of a sudden I get a call from FEMA, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you mean? You said you wanted to, and they're like, no, not on those. We didn't mean those. And I'm like, okay. All right. So I'm still learning too. Sometimes they want to hold the reins, sometimes they don't, and we just try to roll with it. Next slide, please. So I've already gone into why it's important, at least from our point of view, to have the lead federal agency. But that slide demonstrates how many documents we might have that touch one tiny bit of a project area. So we have a programmatic agreement with FEMA. We actually have two programmatic agreements with the Forest Service. We have one with the Federal Highway Administration. We do not have one with the Corps. We have under USDA like 3 different ones depending on the sub branch. And if we don't know to trigger that programmatic agreement, which is more like our designed internal guidance, then we're going to put you through the whole thing. And we're going to have to ask for everything in accordance with federal law. Not that we ever shortcut federal law, but just that's what happens. If we don't know who the lead federal agency is, then Rashay and Steph are going to be going, which document out of our 100-line portfolio do we deal with here? Next slide, please. Does anybody have any questions? Am I boring yet? Soon? Okay. We are driving this home. No, we are. I am. It is hugely important. And I know it sounds so petty and trivial, but it is so important that people just send the email submissions in one cumulative document to that email address. What is happening is we're already late. We know that. We are late on everything right now because we've been working at half staff for over a year. But what happens is people get worried and everything that hits our inbox, oh, we need this today. It's expedited. The grant's gonna be gone next month. And we know that it's that way for everybody and we take it very, very seriously. We literally lose sleep over it. But when you start emailing reviewers directly, it kind of snowballs because we have so few reviewers right now. I distribute from that. So if you copied Gabby or Patty or Steph or Rashay, and I actually send it to Matt to review, then it's getting reviewed twice. And so if you try to shortcut that, you're slowing the entire process down for the state. And it's that big of a deal when you have 120 counties, but 45 federal agencies. And we do thousands of reviews a year, thousands of them. with 3 to 6 reviewers, and that's
Do you
why.
all do site visits on each one, or just
No,
if you all
gosh.
need to?
We go if we need to, we go if we're asked to. If it's 106 related, we also get invited to many things that are not 106 related. Simpsonville, Shelby County. This was a site visit I did a few years back, and I thought people were gonna kill me. There was a sidewalk by a high school. Something that typically we're just like, okay. It's a sidewalk, how bad can it be? It was over a very, very significant archaeological site. And we did 2 site visits out there, trying to figure out where you can move the sidewalk and still have the sidewalk, but not hurt a significant part of the site when you've got an 8-foot strip to work with. So yes, we love to do site visits when we can. And when we're staffed up, it'll be even easier. Even Craig's gone out to Louisville recently because he knows how strapped we are, and he's done site visits himself. Especially for transportation with everything going on. Next slide. If you do all the things, just send one email to KHC. You keep the smiling faces. Next slide, please. Going back to the cover sheet. The street address usually helps the archaeology, or sorry, the above ground historic preservation reviewers, because, you know, they can pull up data. They can take data that we have, match it with what Karen Stevens might have provided. Here's a helpful hint. I know our webpage probably still says something different. If when your project is done, there will be no changes, and correct me if I'm wrong, there will be no changes to the above ground landscape at all. Chances are we don't need the KHC data. If you're putting in new water line and you're gonna sow the grass when you're done, that's a perfect example. We don't need above ground data for that. Yeah. Okay, and likewise with archaeology, if you're gonna put a camera on an interior of a non-historic building, we don't really need you to get the archaeology data. And it's fine to skirt that. Just always know if something weird comes up, we may have to ask you for it, which slows down the review, but you guys will always know better than us whether that's appropriate. Next slide. These things, a lot of times people think that we don't need to review these types of things, and sometimes we don't. It's true. Land and building acquisitions, those do trigger a couple of things. So if you're buying some land and you're looking at your whole project and you have a project scope that says, okay, we're going to purchase this property and we're going to build a hospital on it. And you purchase the property, you're gonna need a comment on purchase and the building because it's part of the undertaking as a whole. And a lot of people don't understand that. To separate it in planning and development, that is called segmentation. And it's a bad thing. And a lot of people just, it seems like 2 parts of the project, right? So the non-construction planning, here's what I've seen a lot. And to be fair, I'm gonna probably amp this up because it's happening more than we would hope. So we, especially because of all the new funds that everybody's spending, which is great. But what's happening is people need the money because they've got 6 months to do a whole project design, raise grants, like those turnarounds are crazy fast a lot of times. But if we comment on the planning stage of it, because you're like, oh, we don't have designs yet, we get that. But then if we write a letter saying, okay, we clear the planning, we look forward to further consultation at design, 100% of the time, when we go to the site visits, it's blitzed. Here's your letter saying it's cleared. And it says, your plans are clear, we look forward to looking at it later. And half the people are just didn't get that. and half the people are taking advantage of it. So we're gonna have to look at those a little more closely. And just heads up on that. Next slide, please. So. I didn't write text to go with this. I think I'm just providing an example of when we would need KHC site checks and when we would need archaeological site checks. And somebody asked me, I'm guessing it was probably Ryan, maybe, about how we can help. So I'm gonna insert a little bit of this here. I can follow up and answer any questions on it. But we hear people a lot of times say, oh, it's just a sidewalk, or, oh, it's just a repair of a water line, or whatever the case may be. So that archaeology slide on the right, you can't tell this, but that is actually under a sidewalk in a trench where water and another kind of utility line are, because I've gone out there to monitor placement like 15 times at this spot. At this point, I've only been here 6 years. They keep stacking things, which is great. And a lot of times people say, oh, it's in the road, it's disturbed. Oh, it's in the right of way, it's disturbed. Do you see the distance between that black lines right there? So you got the concrete, and you've got the grassy humic layer, and then you've got that really, really super dark gray brown, almost black right above the red subsoil. That was where the archaeological site was stratigraphically. So basically, a lot of times the roads, the sidewalks are literally capping archaeological sites rather than disturbing them. So you can't assume something's disturbed just by. And believe it or not, any above ground properties 50 years of age, we're gonna wanna know. So if you can provide pictures of those, great. The data, if I do say so myself, for above ground cultural resources, surveys and sites in the state is great, it's solid. So it's a great resource. Next slide, please. It's going back to the discussion of has sites been disturbed. Every one of those is an archaeological site. We had to pursue an adverse effect on the one on the left because we had said, okay, you can do this, but you have to stay restricted to this area. And basically where that, you see the track, that's the ground surface as it was before they started. And then it rained, and then he took the track hoe out, and they blitzed a prehistoric archaeological site by just running the tracks over it. And does it happen all the time? No, this is, 10%, but that's what we're there for, to prevent these things from happening, to help people figure out how to move forward, causing no impacts or less of an impact. That was literally in somebody's yard. They had a paved over it for their flower garden, the bricks there. That was a historic brick entryway to a house. And it was still kind of the same path was being used up until the 1970s. And that was what was right under the concrete. And we've talked about the site on the bottom already. So next slide. So those attachments are huge. Detailed plans and the scope of work, we get it. If you don't have plans, just know that if we comment on plans alone, we're not done. And those will be the highest targets for uninvited site visits anyway. Does anybody have any questions about those? That the submission you guys sent with that exact level of information was perfect. Next slide. That's it. I have no idea how long that took if I stuck to time, but does anybody have questions, comments, ideas?
I've always been curious on how closely you all, because I know like when we start doing a 106 review, we usually reach out to all the cross-country agencies, which include Native American tribes that might have archaeological sites in the area as well. But how closely do you all work with those agencies, and do you all use the same, you don't have that data on file, or are they do they kind of operate separately from the sort of historical review you do?
Are you asking about the tribes or the certified or
The tribes,
yeah. The tribes are parallel, the way it's supposed to work, and again, in Kentucky, it's weird. So the way National Historic Preservation Act lays it out is, it's supposed to be the lead federal agency contacts the lead federal agency because tribal nations are sovereign if they're federally recognized. And this is something else they're putting off on. And unfortunately, most of the tribes, if they aren't contacted by the appropriate representative of the lead federal agency, they won't comment, which I think is very unfortunate.
Do we have any federally recognized tribes in Kentucky?
Yes, and now here's the thing, people will tell you, especially transportation. We have been having this debate for 6 years now. Federally recognized tribes to have an interest do not have to own property here. That is a myth.
Okay.
If a tribe says, I care, they care, and that's the end of it. If they are federally recognized, we have tons of state recognized tribes. We would certainly support having those folks participate in the process as a consultant party. They don't have the by right level that the tribes do. We, as the SHPO, don't have a direct relationship to the level the federal agencies do, but they also, we're gonna work on that. I'm gonna, to the folks that are interested with the tribal governments, gonna start trying to just kind of talk to them. What we do is completely separate though. Their comments are theirs, our comments are ours. We do not have data on all their cultural properties. We do have some of the Trail of Tears, but not all of them. And it'll probably always be that way. Because, I mean, that's, our office gets calls a lot about folks looting human remains. I know it's a thing. It's, and without a federal hook, there's nothing, we need to work better with the tribes to figure out ways to deal with things outside our 106 umbrella. But we can't speak for the tribes. We don't co-review with the tribes. They are their own thing, and they actually bear more weight than we do. The SHPO's office is allowed to comment, make recommendations, that type of thing. But if a lead federal agency, a true lead federal agency comes out and says, yeah, we disagree with what you're saying, SHPO, thanks for your comment, we're gonna just do it anyway. They can totally do that. Now we do have the resource to amp it up to the advisory council in DC, which slows things down and takes it longer. It's very rare that those circumstances happen because everybody that is on our staff has to meet national qualifications to be able to do the job that we do. It's because it's niche. Who would know about archaeological stratigraphy if you didn't go hunting for it? I mean, anyway.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Those online, any questions? All right, hearing none. Nicole, Rashay, and Stephanie, thank you all for being here today. Everybody got the information they provided. Ryan's gonna send out some of the documents that they had, we have here that those online probably didn't get a copy of, but she'll get those sent out in an email, so everybody will have them.
Yeah.
With all the links and then the actual.
Also, I sincerely apologize to those online. I just realized that I forgot to share that slideshow as the presentation was going on. So I will also send out the slides in the follow-up email. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Yeah, please do. And so thank you for coming and, stick around. We don't have much more, but thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. So our next item of business on our agenda then is the matter of a chair, vice chair, elections, and then some other business. So I don't know if we've had an election for chair and vice chair for a couple of years, maybe. It's been COVID kind of.
We haven't done it since I've been here, so.
Kind of put a hold on that, I think. Everything's been running smoothly, I think, but we do need to formally, I think that's in our bylaw that we do this annually. Annually, so, at this time, I guess we need to handle that procedure. And,
Yes, so yeah, prior to this meeting, I had sort of let everybody know, that this election was coming up, so, I assume it's just a nomination.
Nomination.
For chair and vice chair. So do we have any nominations for, chair, for RPC?
Well, if I'm able to do this, oh, you got it. Okay.
I think that was
Judge-
Ryan's being
Judge,
nominated.
yes, I'm 100% for Ryan.
We have nomination for.
Well, I
for Ryan.
appreciate it.
Second that.
I haven't been that, no.
And we have a second from John Park.
All right.
Y'all,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that nomination and motion to have Ryan Lipke serve as chair for the remainder of this year was approved. So now we'll need a nomination for vice chair. Anybody interested in being vice chair?
I believe the previous was Todd Pollock. This is the second one.
So, and we do have a vacancy there. Anybody interested? It'd only be on my behalf if I didn't show up. You have to run the meeting. And I've done pretty good at being at, it. But, I'm looking at the screen.
who would you nominate?
I'm thinking Judge Bates over there would be a good nomination to be vice chair.
I would accept, I'm not looking for another job, I'll tell you. Just as long as you'll show up every time, we'll
I'll
be
try to
fine.
do my best. Usually at these times and dates always work good for me. so.
Yes.
But it would be good to have that seat filled just in case of some unknowns.
Yes.
All right. So there's a nomination for Judge Bates. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, Judge Bates, thank you for serving as vice chair. And then you have on here other business.
And
What would be the other business?
I have no other business.
Okay, okay. So that was just, all right. So that concludes that part of the agenda. Our next part will be the public comment period. And at this point, anybody from the public that would like to speak, please, come forward and state your name. Seeing no one online or coming forward, the public comment period is closed. Thank you. Our next part of the agenda, if there's no other business, if anybody has anything else, it's time to bring it up. But if not, then we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion, Judge Bates, to adjourn, and we have a second.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, today's meeting of the Regional Planning Council is adjourned. And thank you all for being here. And again, thank you to the Heritage Council and for coming and giving us a nice presentation. And look forward to the emails that Ryan will be sending out with the information from today's meeting. And with that, we are adjourned. And thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you all.
Yeah,
The next meeting is July 11th,
July 11th.
July 11th. Same time, same place.